Kelly and Marco made their way to the neighborhood Lover's Path that evening on Valentine's Day. The area was deserted and it had freshly snowed. Kelly thought she heard someone walking nearby shortly after they parked. She was a little concerned, despite Marco's assurances that she need not worry. Kelly's face was suddenly drenched with something sticky and there was a terrible thought. Blood was seen. Marco was instantaneously killed as an arrow entered the open window directly and lodged in his brain. Kelly yelled in shock. She exited the vehicle and made an attempt to flee for her life, but her legs gave up and she collapsed to the ground. She had been cut by something coming from below the car. She was unable to stand. She noticed a man standing over her when she opened her eyes. He was hiding his face. The words "die, die, die" were written in red lettering over the front of his jacket. He was wearing some sort of belt around his waist and had a bow and arrow in one hand. He was holding a machete in his other hand. Kelly last noticed that before feeling the machete's blade slash across her throat, urged him to be at her side. He promised to return shortly. After some time, Megan started to worry when he didn't show up. She heard a tap, tap, tap on the car window all of a sudden. She screamed in terror when she saw what it was as she stepped outside to investigate. Less than 10 feet from the automobile, Greg's body was laying in the snow. He had an arrow in the back of his head. Megan suddenly heard a loud thunk and experienced a severe stomach ache. She shrieked while clutching her stomach. She saw she had been hit in the stomach by an arrow when she looked down. She didn't have time to wonder what was going on before another arrow zipping through the air pierced her forehead. Just as they parked their car, Danielle and Ryan overheard the screaming. They went to investigate since they believed someone might be in need of assistance. They returned to their car after finding nothing unusual. When Ryan occurred to check in the rearview mirror, he halted as he was about to start it. A man in a mask was sitting in the back seat. The man grabbed him by the back and used a machete to sever his neck before he could respond. Danielle screamed and tried to run away, but the cold had frozen the door. With a rope in hand, the Cupid killer strangled the victim. On Valentine's Day a year later, Brandon was shopping for flowers and chocolates for his girlfriend, Desiree. He was returning to his car when a masked attacker struck him from behind. He pushed his head down into the trunk and repeatedly slammed the hood on it, leaving the body there. Clint and Kirsten had intended to go out to a nice restaurant to enjoy Valentine's Day together. However, Kirsten turned on the radio as they were going home and heard that there had been another murder. She attempted to go home as quickly as she could since she was too afraid to stay outside. She was all too familiar with the Cupid killer's savagery from only 1 year prior. She didn't know Kelly all that well, but Kelly had dated Patrick, one of her closest high school pals, at one point. After seeing him one summer, she lost touch with him and hasn't spoken to him in a while. The public was being alerted by the police that a killer was on the loose. Everyone knew it was the Cupid killer once more, even if they didn't want to admit it. They dubbed him such because he had left heart-shaped arrows on the bodies of each of his victims. Brandon was no different. Since he was from another city, she didn't know him, but Desiree had been a classmate of hers, though she hardly knew either of them. She had never met the other victims, who were 2 years her junior. After some time, she persuaded Clint to return home and spend the night there. They arrived there unharmed and entered. They heard a car pull up outside as they were taking off their outerwear. Joe answered. She invited him to meet Clint when he asked whether she was okay. Though she looked outside and saw nothing, she heard a car trunk slam. After some time, she began to wonder why Clint and Joe were taking so long to arrive, so she walked up to her room to find out why. She screamed in terror at what she discovered. Clint had been shot in the back and was now dead. Joe wasn't to be found. She discovered her window open, an arrow hole in it, and noticed tracks leading away from it and into the backyard. Patrick knocked on her door after hearing it ring. He came to see how she was. She explained what had occurred. Then, he persuaded her to report Joe to the police. Joe returned while they were waiting for them and informed her that the arrow had come through the window. When Joe looked outside, he spotted the Cupid killer escaping into a backyard. Joe tried to pursue after him but failed. Before the police arrived, Patrick labeled him a liar and got into a fight with him. After discovering the Cupid killer mask in Joe's trunk, they detained him. Additionally, the claim that Joe pursued him was refuted by the fact that there was only one set of tracks in the snow leading into the backyards. Clint also had the distinctive calling card of the Cupid killer. The police believed he entered Kirsten's room and killed her. Then Clint shot another arrow through a window to break the appearance that it was fired from the outside. The arrow was then shot into the snow as he climbed out the window. This notion was confirmed when police discovered an arrow on the house's side that had been covered in snow. The cops indicated it was okay for Patrick to stay with her as he comforted her the entire trip. Kirsten told her mother over the phone that Patrick was looking after her and that she was doing okay. Patrick confessed to her that although Kelly and Joe subsequently stood in the way of their love, he had always loathed Valentine's Day and happy, contented couples as a result. Kirsten then flushed and apologized for not noticing sooner. "It's all right," said Patrick. "I've got you all to myself now." The second story is Love Potion, a spooky story about a young man who buys a magic potion to cast a spell of love over a woman he desires. A man, aged 21, traveled to the Bahamas on vacation. He arrived at his hotel and was pleased with everything. The beach was spotless, the hotel was upscale, and the atmosphere was vibrant. The weather was also ideal. He put on his most fragrant aftershave that evening, put on a pricey shirt, and headed to the hotel bar for a drink. He noticed a stunning woman standing at the bar wearing a skimpy red dress. She had large lips, round hips, tan skin, long, dark hair, eyes that were deep brown, and a lot of charm. She had everything. The man gazed at her, mesmerized by the beauty of her eyes, so much so that he fell in love at first sight. He mustered up the bravery to approach the woman and take a seat next to her at the bar. He leaned in and asked if he might buy her a drink when the chance presented itself. Just imagine his sadness when she turned him down and waved him off. It drove him insane. He grew really irritated and felt rejected. It appeared as though she had stabbed him in the chest. He went back to his hotel room, hanging his head in shame because he was so dejected. He saw her again the following evening when he returned to the bar. He would give it another shot this time. "Why should I be interested in your name?" she questioned. He said sincerely, "I thought maybe we might get to know each other a little better." She snarled back, "I'd rather gnaw my own limb off." Once more, the young man was embarrassed and made his way back to his room. He came upon an elderly woman peddling her goods by the side of the street the following day as he was visiting the city. She was holding a placard that stated "Spell Casting and Black Magic," and he noticed it. He halted at her cart and inquired as to whether she sold anything that might make a lady fall madly in love with a man. She smiled and informed him that she had the ideal answer for him. She extended a tiny bottle bearing a heart-shaped imprint. A red substance, resembling syrup, was inside. It was a love potion, she informed him. The bottle was gratefully accepted by the man, who also paid her. The elderly woman cautioned him as he was walking away to use just one drop in the drink of the target. He might regret it if he doesn't, she warned. The young man walked into the bar that evening and sat down next to the young woman. He started a gentle conversation with her. To prevent it, she appeared to turn her head. He used the occasion to pour her a drink of the love potion. He emptied the entire vial into her drink in case the potion wasn't effective. The woman turned to him after 20 minutes and grinned. Her pupils grew larger and her eyes sparkled. She flung herself on him and started giving him a passionate kiss before he could say anything. The man was in awe of his good fortune. The love potion did indeed work. They kissed and cuddled like newlyweds throughout the entire night in a passionate embrace. The woman intended to surprise him when morning came. She made the decision to make an elegant breakfast and set out to find cream cheese and croissants. Sadly, she was struck by a car the moment she stepped outside the hotel. She was instantly killed when the car's tires crushed her head into a bloody pulp. The young man spent the whole day crying. He started to get over her as night fell, but he couldn't fall asleep. He was tossing and turning in bed when he suddenly felt someone in the space. He was startled to see the ghostly image of the red-clad woman by the door when he turned over. He noticed that her face's skin had been torn off, exposing the bone beneath when she raised her head. She jumped on him and started giving him a passionate kiss, pressing her mangled lips and bony teeth on his mouth before he could react. He yelled nonstop, but she held on to him until daylight. She kept coming back every night till he passed away.